Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. Well, Trump has made a move to actually recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The international communities, of course, have responded to that. And, of course, we've got more on North Korea in the news. But first, we're going to start off with Senator Al Franken, who is in the news right now. He is one of the latest senators to resign amidst sexual misconduct allegations. Senator Franken suggests he is a victim of a double standard. In his resignation speech, he stated that he was leaving while a man has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assaults while he sits in the Oval Office. Referring, of course, to President Trump. Like President Trump, Franken is accused of groping women before he came into office. Franken isn't the only one in the spotlight. Roy Moore had been disavowed by many Senate Republicans due to those same type of allegations.
Well, later that day, Republicans learned that Arizona Republican Trent Franks intends to step down after 8 terms, although he didn't reveal what his reasoning was for the move. He told reporters when asked why he was stepping down, "I'll let the statement speak for itself." When asked what does the statement say, the senator simply said, "Read it."
Very tight lip. Well, North Korea is edging closer, ever closer to nuclear war as the United States and its allies continue with military drills, which the North sees as provocative. Well, take a look at this next video as the tensions of war build between North Korea and the United States.
We don't think he has an understanding about how tenuous his position is, domestically and internationally. That is, those around him are not feeding him the truth about the place that he finds himself, how precarious his position is in the world today. It's probably not easy to tell Kim Jong-un bad news.
Well, Katan, you can definitely see the situation isn't getting any better. They're still going back and forth just like they have been.
That's right.
Well, the U.S. State Department is asking all U.S. diplomats to put off all travels to Jerusalem and the West Bank until later this month. Now, this amid concerns that there may be violence in the region after the statements made by President Trump saying the U.S. recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel for the first time since a Jewish state nearly 70 years ago. Along with his campaign promise to move the U.S. Embassy, President Trump ordered the State Department to start making plans to move the embassy there.
Well, President Trump said in an address concerning the matter, "We cannot solve our problems by making the same failed assumptions and repeating the same failed strategies of the past. Now, the president made this decision going against previous presidents. He also rejected recommendations from his secretaries of state and defense. The president also said this is a long overdue step to advance the peace process and to work towards a lasting agreement.
Well, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, will be leading the effort, but he has yet to formulate a plan. Candidate Trump appealed to the conservative Christian base when he promised the embassy would be moved. Well, he started that move, which is expected to take at least 4 years. Now, a new embassy, when completed, will be a magnificent tribute to peace. The decision made by the president was done at the urging of Vice President Mike Pence, a Christian conservative and staunch supporter of Israel. Now, Pence will travel to the region later in the month.
President Trump said that the U.S. will not dictate the terms of a peace agreement, but will support a two-state solution if that is what the Israelis and Palestinians agree to. With this announcement, senior administrative officials anticipate that the Palestinians will, quote, blow off some steam, end quote, before realizing that the U.S. is central to any durable peace deal. With this move, they say the president is signaling the contours of this deal will get worse, not better, the longer the Palestinians wait.
Well, the global community is mobilizing in response to the president's recent decision. Larry McGee is picking up for us with the details. Larry, what are some of the leaders now saying about President Trump's move to make Jerusalem the capital of Israel?
Security Council members are calling for a UN meeting to talk over President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Sitting in the hot seat concerning the matter, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, shared insight concerning the particulars related to the president's decision with reporters this week. The ambassador stated that the decision has been 22 years in the making, electing to pinpoint congressional approval of the Jerusalem Embassy Act in 1995 as a starting point. The ambassador stated that the move is actually a measure that has political support from both major parties in the U.S. The diplomat commented that with Israel's prime minister being in Jerusalem along with his parliament and Supreme Court, there is really no dispute as to whether the city is in fact the capital, and traditionally, the United States has always placed its embassy in the capital. Mrs. Haley says that all of the leading presidential candidates have been for moving the embassy, but the move hasn't been taken up until now due to the belief that the act would hurt the peace process. The diplomat stated that for 22 years, however, we have not seen a peace process, and so the idea is that if we do something different, maybe we will now start to see something move forward. The message that the current administration reportedly wants to send is that it is time, for the sake of Israeli children and Palestinian children, for both sides to come together. It's time for them to negotiate, and the United States is pushing that process. Ambassador Haley says that for 22 years we have seen everything be stale, and the president has finally said, let's get it done. The official perspective is that the peace process is too far down the road to stop negotiations. Another point of interest is the waiver that every president since 1995 has signed to keep the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv for security reasons. The next deadline is scheduled to come up in 6 months, and there are questions as to what the president's move will be. The administration's response is that the language of the waiver states that the embassy site has to be functional at the time that it is declared. So if the embassy is built, the president will not have to sign the waiver. But if it is not, then he will. Amid other controversies, including alleged disagreement with respect to the move by Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and others, the ambassador stated that at the end of the day, this is about a president who has had the courage to say we're going to try something different. He's moving the ball on that, and we're seeing Palestinians and Israelis come together to finally talk about a peace process, she says. Let's hope that happens. In answering to the international community of the United Nations concerning the president's recent move, the ambassador's language was clothed in candor and frankness. Here's a recording from the ambassador's speech.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Jewish people are a patient people. The American people are less patient. It's important to be clear about exactly what the President's decision does. The President has announced that the United States recognizes the obvious, that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. He has also instructed the State Department to begin the process of relocating the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That is what the President has done. And this is what he has not done. The United States has not taken a position on boundaries or borders. The specific dimensions of sovereignty over Jerusalem are still to be decided by the Israelis and the Palestinians in negotiations. The United States has not advocated changing any of the arrangements at the Temple Mount Harim al-Sharif. The President specifically called for maintaining the status quo at the holy sites. Finally, and critically, the United States is not predetermining final status issues. We remain committed to achieving a lasting peace agreement. We support a two-state solution if agreed to by the parties. Those are the facts of what was said and done this week. To those who have good faith concerns about the future of peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, let me again assure you that the President and this administration remain committed to the peace process. To those who do not act in good faith, to any person, leader, country, or terrorist group that uses this week's decision as a pretext for violence, you are only showing yourselves to be unfit partners of peace. Finally, I will not let this moment pass without a comment about the United Nations itself. Over many years, the United Nations has outrageously been of the world's foremost centers of hostility towards Israel. The UN has done much more damage to the prospects for Middle East peace than to advance them. We will not be a party to that. The United States no longer stands by when Israel is unfairly attacked in the United Nations. And the United States will not be lectured to by countries that lack any credibility when it comes to treating both Israelis and Palestinians fairly. It is no coincidence that the historic peace agreements between Egypt and Israel and between Jordan and Israel were both signed on the White House lawn. If and when there's a historic peace agreement between Israelis and Palestinians, there's a good likelihood that it too will be signed on the White House lawn. Why is that? If and when there's a historic peace agreement between Israelis and Palestinians, there's a good likelihood that it too will be signed on the White House lawn. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that?
Not surprising, the response of global leaders has been mixed, with Israeli head Benjamin Netanyahu praising the decision and labeling it as a very significant day, while the leader of Palestine stated that he believes that the move disqualified America from being a negotiator. The move is reportedly being viewed in the Islamic world as a slap in the face, since so many Muslims support the cause of Palestinian statehood. There are reportedly quite a few amongst them who believe that the U.S. is waging a war against Islam, and the suspicion is that the latest move by the president will be seen as evidence of that. Opposition has come from other parties as well, including the King of Jordan, China, and the Pope, who says that he has prayed that wisdom and prudence will prevail. Palestinian protests have also broken out, with certain groups calling for a day of rage, and Hamas has stated that the announcement opens the gates of hell. The conclusion of it all seems to be that while there are various governments of the Euphrates who disagree, they are helpless at the moment to do anything about it. But the belief is that in the future, when America needs cooperation from the oil-rich quarter, moves like this will be remembered and won't help. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, it definitely seems as Ms. Haley is adamant about this peace process and these moves from the president moving forward. So I guess we'll see how all this plays out in the next few months. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, made it clear that the U.S. is not in line with their plans of a two-state solution. He said, The two-state solution, he said, there is no plan B. It is only by realizing the vision of two states living side by side in peace, security, and mutual recognition with Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and Palestine, and all final status issues resolved permanently through negotiations, the legitimate aspirations of both peoples will be achieved.
The Secretary General said he would do everything in his power to support both the Israeli and Palestinian leaders. He encouraged the return of negotiations to achieve an lasting peace for both peoples.
Interesting. Well, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas was informed of President Donald Trump's plan to relocate the American embassy to Jerusalem. He warned President Trump that any such move would have dangerous consequences. International law states Jerusalem is occupied by Israel and must be given back to Palestinians.
The High Representative of the European Union, Fredrica Mogherini, expressed concern, saying the European Union supports the resumption of a meaningful peace process towards a two-state solution. We believe that any action that would undermine this process must absolutely be avoided. A way must be found through negotiations to resolve the status of Jerusalem as the future capital of both states so the aspirations of both parties can be fulfilled.
The French President, the Arab League, Secretary General, and the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. have all warned the detrimental impact this move will have on the peace process and tensions in the region. The Turkish president has also cautioned that recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital is a red line for Muslim countries.
President Erdogan said Jerusalem, Mr. Trump, is a red line for Muslims. While the wounds of the Palestinian people continue to bleed, while there are daily violations of rights and oppression, making a decision like this to support Israel is not just a violation of international law, it is also a heavy blow to human conscience.
The Turkish president vowed to fight this to the end, even if it would mean cutting ties with Israel. The Jordanians were also displeased as Jordan's King Abdullah strongly criticized any such move by the U.S. for its dangerous repercussions on security and stability in the region. The chief representative in Washington for the PLO viewed the U.S.'s decision as a decision with catastrophic consequences.
Well, Pope Francis had to chime in as well, saying, "My thoughts go out to Jerusalem in this respect. I cannot hide my deep concern about the situation that has developed in the last days. And in the meantime, I make an urgent appeal to everyone to respect the status quo of the city in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the United Nations."
Well, Russia, the UK, China, Germany, and Syria have all criticized the U.S. president for his plan on Jerusalem.
We close today with a statement from Donald Tusk, the president of the European Council, along with one of his colleagues, on their feelings towards President Trump's announcement.
With thanks to Olof from Sweden for the initiative, Christoph from Germany and I from the UK will now read the text in English, just as Francois from France and Sebastiano from Italy have done the French text. So this is the agreed English text of the European statement. We disagree with the US decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to begin preparation to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It is not in line with Security Council resolutions and is unhelpful in terms of prospects for peace in the region. The status of Jerusalem must be determined through negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians, leading to a final status agreement. It is a constant position of EU members that within this framework, Jerusalem should ultimately be the capital of both Israeli and Palestinian states. Until then, we recognize no sovereignty over Jerusalem. In line with international law and relevant Security Council resolutions, notably resolutions 476, 478 and 2334, we consider East Jerusalem as part of the occupied Palestinian territories. An agreement on the borders of the two states should be based on the 4th of June 1967 lines with equivalent land swaps, as may be agreed between the parties. The EU will not recognise any changes to the pre-1967 borders. The EU will not recognise any changes to the pre-1967 borders, including with regard to Jerusalem, other than those agreed by the parties.
Thank you. Having been invited by my European colleagues to join this statement, I conclude the English version. Given the volatile situation on the ground, we call on all parties and all regional stakeholders to work together to maintain calm. We all share a willingness to put an end to the conflict. We note the commitment made by President Trump to support a two-state solution if agreed by both sides, and his clear acknowledgement that the specific boundaries of the Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem must be subject to negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. We stand ready to contribute to all credible efforts to restart the peace process. We stand ready to contribute to all credible efforts to restart the peace process on the basis of internationally agreed principles and parameters, leading to a two-state solution. We encourage the US administration to now bring forward detailed proposals for an Israeli-Palestinian settlement. We encourage the US administration to now bring forward detailed proposals for an Israeli-Palestinian settlement. We encourage the US administration to now bring forward detailed proposals for an Israeli-Palestinian settlement.
Katan, we see Christoph Huskin there ending this statement by saying, now that the U.S. has made this proposal, let's see what the details are. Go ahead and bring them forth, and let's see how it's going to work out with the Israelis and the Palestinians. So quite a bit of controversy in the international community. Everybody, it seems like, except the U.S. and President Donald Trump, is against just Jerusalem only, the capital of Israel. They want the two-state solution. And of course, we know that Yeshua Hawkins has written quite a bit about this peace process.
That's right. In fact, in his books, The Mark of the Beast, he has 2 volumes on that. The first one was written in the late 70s. He actually showed through Bible prophecy that these very things would be done, that the nations would be divided, and Israel, they would actually enter into this peace plan that took place in September of 1993. It was signed on the White House lawn. President Clinton was in office at that time, and then it went into effect in October 13th of 1993. And he's wrote a lot about that in The Mark of the Beast, Birth of the Nuclear Baby, and also another pamphlet that he has called The Peaceful Solution to Rebuilding the Next Temple. Has a lot of information about the very things that we're seeing take place at this time right now.
And for all our viewers, you can obtain those writings that Katan just mentioned by contacting the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free prophetic word and monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can also call them at 1-800-613-9494, or visit them on any of their websites by going to Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. You can also email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And of course, as we mentioned in the past, don't forget the free study resources to the Holy Scriptures, the Yisrael Says and the Ask Yisrael program. When you can find that by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is another inspired message from Yeshua Hawkins as he ties in today's news into Bible prophecy. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.